Hello, hello.
Hello, Ajayji. This is Jay Kansara. Can you hear me? Hello?
we discuss and debate issues related to our Hindu American community for this upcoming presidential election. We have an amazing panel of debaters to represent the relevant issues for our community from a Trump administration perspective and from a Biden administration perspective. The issue and topics have been broken down into 3 distinct categories: domestic policies and tendencies, the foreign policy issues, and the third is the party stances, the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party. The guidelines set for this debate are as follows. All issues that are presented or raised must be relevant to issues specific to the Hindu community in America. No issue should be specific only to a region of the United States, and the focus should be on the facts, and purely emotional arguments should be avoided. The questions have not been given to the speakers beforehand. Before we start the debate, I'd like to thank the TV for live streaming this event for us and for the community. I'd also like to call on each of our sponsoring organizations to just say a few words about themselves and to thank them for actually sponsoring this event. So why don't we start with Rajiv Singh to talk about HAF and HAPAC. So Hindu American Foundation and the Hindu American Political Action Committee.
Rajiv, just a second. Rajiv, please go ahead.
Namaste, everybody. Thank you for hosting the great panelists. This is an important dialogue today. I want to briefly introduce Hindu American PAC and Hindu American Foundation, 2 separate entities, but let me start with Hindu American Political Action Committee. First of all, you can find them at hinduamericanpac.org. HAPAC, as we call it, is an independent, nonpartisan PAC, which exists to support candidates who are committed to Hindu American interests, specifically civil rights and human rights and religious freedom. HAPAC supports federal candidates as well as state level candidates across the country. Next, I would briefly like to talk about and thank on behalf of Hindu American Foundation, the organizers for this event. HAF is a 501c3 nonpartisan organization which focuses on education and advocacy. It was established in 2003 and is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It is primarily, it exists to represent the Hindu American interests to various stakeholders across the country, again, federal, state, local level, and policymakers to address issues of civil and human rights. And with that, I'll stop right here. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Rajiv. I'd like to ask Nikunj Trivedi to talk about the Coalition of Hindus in North America.
So actually, Sohini Sarkar is representing Kona today.
Okay, hi, thank you, Sohini.
Hi, namaste. Namaskar and happy Navratri. On behalf of the Coalition of Hindus of North America, I'd like to welcome you all to this 2020 election debate on issues affecting the Hindu community in America. Kona decided to get involved in this event and co-sponsor this event today because it very clearly addresses all aspects of our mission. Kona's mission is to advocate for a better understanding of Hindu heritage and tradition, to promote grassroots level interaction and coordination among Hindus in North America, and to promote greater cultural, social, and academic exchanges among Hindus in North America, India, and around the globe. You can learn more about Kona at kohna.org. As you know, the stakes in this election are incredibly important, and we are looking forward to addressing many important topics today that affect Hindu Americans. In order to make a meaningful difference and represent the Hindu community, please remember to vote early or to make a plan to vote, and encourage all your friends and family to vote as well. Thank you so much for being at this event today and taking that time. Namaste and thank you.
And finally, I'd like to call on Ajay Shah to talk about Hindu Pact and Hindu Vote.
So namaste, I representing Hindu Pact. It's initiative of World Hindu Council of America or VHPA. There are 6 million Hindus in America, and there are 6 million Buddhists, again, following dharmic traditions. So there are about 12 to 13 million people who follow the dharmic traditions in America. There are about 7 to 10 million other people in America who follow other dharmic practices in one way or the other. We come in multiple races, linguistic traditions, different way of worshiping. And yet, when we are all together, we have common issues. And the common issues that we face are the ignorance of Hindu Dharma, the Hindu phobia that we face, the threat of terrorism that we face. So as much as there is diversity in the Dharma, we are not monolithic. We don't think politically the same. We don't think, we don't act same. We don't follow the same practices many times. And yet there is this bond that unites us all. And that bond is what brings us here together today. How do we come together and look at the issues from the Hindu perspective? That is not to say that we want everyone to vote the same way, but at least develop a common understanding of the issues and promote voter education, promote people to go out and vote, and just in general, be more engaged in public service and public life. And that is the goal of Hindu Pact. And I'm so glad that everyone here is together today, organizations ranging from HAF to KONA to Hindu American Political Action Committee and many others who we could not contact because of lack of time. But this is a way for the community for the first time to look at the issues and then hear different opinions on how the issues can be addressed. So I want to just thank everyone for being here, and Rakhi, who has done an incredible job in organizing this panel. So the other task that I have, in addition to introducing Hindu Pact, by the way, the Hindu Pact is hindupact.org, hindupact.org. And we also have a voter education website called hinduvote.org. So please do visit that. My second task is to introduce Rakhi. For those who don't know Rakhi, Rakhi has been active in several Hindu organizations for a very long time. I met Rakhi when she was a student, and I think I was also a student at the time, and she was at Hindu Students Council. She was actually the first elected president of Hindu Students Council, had been active in various Hindu causes, and just really, really dedicated Hindu worker. And now she is on the board of directors of Hindu American Political Action Committee, and she also is the executive director for legal affairs for the Hindu Pact. So with all that, welcome Rakhi, and I turn it over to Rakhi as the moderator for this event.
I guess I should unmute myself. So thank you so much. So let me first introduce our debaters for both the Biden side and the Trump side. And before I do want to say that one of our criteria for picking the debaters was that, they obviously had to support the candidate that they are going to be representing in this debate, but also they had to be people that have demonstrated a true love or passion, or that they care about our community. And that's probably the more important part of it, is that, whatever the outcome of this election, that, we need to move forward and we need to work to strengthen our community. So with that, I'd first like to introduce the panel for the Biden side. Tushar Dayagode is representing the Biden side. He has been actively involved in the US political process by writing opinions and rebuttals. Professionally, he has started 2 companies in San Jose. He campaigned for Modi ji in March of 2019. He used to be active in the Hindu Swayam Civic Sangh for several years. He is involved in the political process as a matter of interest and not agenda. The second panelist for the Biden side is Nish Acharya. Nish was appointed by President Obama as Senior Advisor to the US Secretary of Commerce and Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in 2011. He also served as the Director for the President's Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He previously served as the Executive Director of the Desh and Jay Shri Deshpande Foundation, as a board member for the Akshay Patra Foundation, and as a political appointee for the Clinton White House from 1995 to 2000. In the year 2000, he wrote the Diwali Proclamation announced by President Clinton, the first ever announced by an American president. He currently runs his own startup, writes for Forbes, and is a senior fellow with the Center for American Progress. Thank you, Nish. The third panelist for the Biden side is Nikki Shah. Nikki is a research fellow at 17 Asset Management's Research and Advisory Unit. His expertise lies in community and international development, corporate sustainability, and environmental, social, and governance. In his professional capacity, Nikki has worked with civil society, government, and cooperations to bring sustainable solutions to social and environmental challenges. He has also served on the U.S. House Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health. He has co-authored a report on the internet rights for a European Union funded program on freedom of expression in India. Nikki holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism and economics and a Master's of Science in Global Affairs from Rutgers University. Currently, he is pursuing a Master's of Science in Sustainability Management at Columbia University, where he is part of the executive team of Columbia Sustainable Finance Professionals Network. Thank you, Nikki. So thank you to the three of you. Now I'll go through the Trump panel. On the Trump side, we have Jay Kansara. Jay Kansara is a political advisor who specializes in Hindu community engagement. He served as the Director of Government Relations for 9 years at the Hindu American Foundation, where he testified before Congress on radical Islamic extremist movements in Bangladesh, and initiated the first ever annual Hindu Focus Policy Forum in Washington, D.C. Jay served as the head of government relations for Howdy Modi, where President Trump and Prime Minister Modi unbroke the shackles of previous obstacles in advancing US and India relations. Jay has been a frequent contributor on former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon's podcast, War Room Pandemic. Thank you, Jay. The second panelist is Dr. Srilekha Pillai. Dr. Srilekha Pillai is an accomplished healthcare executive with 20 plus years experience driving quality, performance, improvement, and profitability for major healthcare systems in Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Dr. Pillai earned her Doctor of Physical Therapy from Boston University and has completed her MBA with a focus on healthcare administration. She is the Vice President of National Capital Healthcare Executives, a role in which she is dedicated to advancing excellence in healthcare management for our region and beyond. She served as the president of the Durga Temple, the largest temple in Northern Virginia. She's currently serving as a political director for the American Hindu Coalition. She's an active leader within the Indian community in the DC area. Dr. Pillai is the vice president of Fairfax GOP and an active political leader within the Trump campaign and the Republican Party. As a Hindu American, Srilekha ji was part of the delegation that was led by Ivanka Trump and attended the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in 2017 in Bharat that connected startup founders and entrepreneurs with potential investors with a theme of Women First, Prosperity for All, where 89% of the startup founders were rural Hindu women. And finally, the third panelist on the Trump side is Utsav Chakrabarti, an architect by profession. Utsavji has been presenting the case of Hindu and subaltern communities to thought leaders in Washington, D.C. for more than 18 years. An astute observer of geopolitical trends inside the Washington Beltway, his works have been presented to lawmakers at the Capitol Hill and to representatives of the Human Rights Commission at the United Nations. Currently volunteering as the executive director of Hindu Pact, Utsav's interest in geopolitics, socio-political movements, and religion stems from his exposure to the history of architecture, the built environment, and its impact on people and civilization. So thank you all for joining us today. As I said in the beginning, that we have broken up this debate into three areas. We have the domestic side and the influence and tendencies. We have the foreign policy issues, especially as they relate to Hindu Americans in this country. And the third is the party stance, Republicans versus Democrats in general. Each of the panelists have chosen a side, or chosen one of these three topics, and they've broken up who's going to talk for their candidate and who's going to talk anti the other candidate, just to make sure that we cover all bases and that we can have a fruitful discussion. So the first topic is the domestic influences and tendencies. We will start with the Trump side. I'd like to call on Jay to start us off by talking about the pro-Trump side on domestic policy. Jay.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much to all of the organizers of this discussion. It's very timely and necessary so that our community can be absolutely informed when they submit their vote in the ballot box or by mail this year. As a seasoned Washington insider, I saw the swamp, as it's called, from very up close and personally. And quite frankly, my 9 years at the Hindu American Foundation really made me very disillusioned with the establishment of both political parties. And that's why President Trump, as an outsider, as someone who has engaged with someone who has engaged in business activity, brought a fresh perspective to Washington that the Hindu community, I think, appreciated and actually supported overwhelmingly more so than they had in any other Republican nominee for president in years past. President Trump's engagement actually with the Hindu American community stems far before his ascent to the political stage nationally. Actually, he, as a businessman, as a real estate mogul in New York, he had actually granted the Hare Krishna community the opportunity to construct their Rath for Rath Yatra in one of his properties or one of his warehouses. And this was done at a time when Hindus in the United States, especially the Hare Krishna community, which was obviously making headway into bringing Hindu Dharma to non-Indic peoples. The Hindus were viewed as an exoticized cult and an exoticized people and culture and religion. And then real estate developer Donald Trump granted the Hindu community the opportunity to work. And so with that, key things that President Trump has done domestically that Hindu Americans should be supportive of is his support for law and order. With 800 plus Hindu temples across the country, we absolutely must have law and order and support our police in order to prevent hate crimes. And also by dismantling the argument about critical race theory that the left is promoting, he is ensuring that Hindus have access to education, as we are one of the most active educated communities in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. So now we'll have Nikki will present the pro-Biden side on domestic issues. Nikki.
Namaste, everyone. On behalf of everyone, happy Navratri. This is an important engagement, so totally appreciate for me to be included in this panel. Sanatan Dharma teaches us that an elected official who represents common people should be a tapasvi. And I interpret this as someone who works hard with karuna or compassion, nishtha or loyalty, and is strongly rooted with issues common people face. And I believe that Joe Biden is that elected official who deserves to be that president. Because throughout his career, he has kept relations with ordinary people in mind, tackling domestic and foreign policy matters in the Senate. And while doing so, he made sure that he reached home so that he is committed to his family. And we need that leadership and commitment to family values and to the country as a president. But not only that, he has deep respect for the Hindu American community. In the Obama-Biden administration, we have seen several Indian American and Hindu American leaders appointed, such as Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, Ambassador Rich Verma, and Assistant Secretary of State Nisha Biswal. Among them was also Anju Bhargava, who I worked for, who also served as a member of the President's Advisory Council on faith-based initiatives. We worked together to address health, education, and environment issues, and also to developing a plan for protecting Hindu mandirs or dharmic places of worship. And even now in the campaign, Medha Raj and Amit Jani are two senior officials who are serving in the campaign. One as Digital Chief of Staff and the other as Director of Asian American Pacific Islander Outreach. It is also to be noted that Sohini Sirkarji also worked with me as an AmeriCorps fellow with Anju Bhargava and the Hindu American Seva Charities. These examples are only possible when you have a leader who is committed to local people. And under P. Biden and Senator Harris's platform, They have a platform to build America back and better. Doing so by building a 21st century government and addressing the coronavirus pandemic based on scientific facts and expert advice, reestablishing the American economy, and increasing the flow of capital to small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and businesses who need that critical funding in this time, and also building a sustainable infrastructure with a clean energy future, something that is very needed in these trying times. And also building a modern infrastructure and an education system that addresses the needs of education workforce.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nikki. So now we'll talk about the against Biden. Utsavji will be covering that part.
Namaste, everybody. I would like to start off by showing this on the screen. I hope everybody can see this. This came out yesterday, and I just want everybody to look at it very closely. It's a picture of Durga Devi with the face of Kamala Harris, with Biden as the Singha and President Trump as the villain or the Mahisasur. The reason I'm showing this is because this is exactly what the Democratic platform and the Biden-Harris campaign has done after spending more than 6 months not even referring or mentioning the Hindu communities, and the communities continuing to donate and beg for some support. It's called tokenism. So the only outreach that the Biden-Harris ticket has made to the American Hindu community is this kind of tokenism, which at best is cheap and hurtful, and at its worst creates Hinduphobia. Writing a nice message to the Hindu community on a Hindu festival, which by the way they do for all the communities, rightfully so, does not touch upon the real generational trauma and the civilizational challenges that the community is grappling with in America and by extension around the world. The Biden-Harris ticket has quoted two of the biggest threats, both of which are historical, that are existing to the Hindu community. One is Islamism and the other is Marxism. The prevalence and promotion of anti-Hindu rhetoric at all levels of the Democratic Party, whether it is the city councils or whether it is the House and the Senate level, has not been criticized at all by the Biden-Harris ticket. In fact, they have actually gone on and supported many of those positions and then occasionally tracked back after a furor from the community. So my point is, give up the tokenism. Let's talk about real substantial issues.
Thank you, Utsavji. And finally, Tusharji will present the anti-Trump side for the domestic issues.
Namaskar everyone, and thank you for putting this panel together. Happy Navratri. So I have been a ardent, of course, Hindu, but also supporter of Hindu initiatives. And I voted for Trump in 2016, and I think I fell for the trap. I love the Hindus, I love India, and I also went to the Howdy Modi event with my family, and I believed that whenever I saw President Trump, and I tried to believe anything what he said, it was a facade that he was putting together as a transaction. A lot of the issues, the domestic issues, including the healthcare issues, tax, immigration, climate change, they don't affect only the Americans. We as Americans, Hindu Americans, also get affected by that. Just, Trump's relationship with, our Prime Minister Modi ji is also, I believe, transactional. When COVID hit, earlier this year, first of all, he made a mess of the situation. Second, when he thought that hydroxychloroquine was a panacea, to this problem, the first thing he did is he started bullying India into giving him these drugs without having any evidence. So I do believe that he probably has put together a facade to please the Hindu community, but I don't think internally he really does anything for anyone. So it is not like he hasn't made overtures. I'm not saying he has not done anything, but he has on every occasion tracked back and showed his true colors. So a person who is, fundamentally racist, misogynist, doesn't believe in equality, doesn't believe in friendship, believes only in bullying, can you even trust that person? So it is all the issues that are before us, they in America, they don't affect only the Americans, they affect all Americans. They affect Hindu Americans as well at the same level. And his friendship with Hindus here or in India, I don't think it's true. And that's why I believe that we should vote for Vice President Joe Biden in the coming elections. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, when we had opened the registration link, we had gotten lots of questions. I mean, this is obviously a very emotional race, and it actually shows the maturity of our community that we're finally kind of getting involved politically and paying attention. So these questions I'm asking, a lot of them have actually come from that link. If people have other questions, they're welcome to put it in the chat and we'll pull it out. But the first question is for the Biden side. Within the Hindu American community, there's been a lot of attention given to the fact that Biden seems to be more focused on the Muslim agenda compared to the Hindu American agenda, with his comments about teaching confessional faiths and neglecting the dharmic faiths. In addition, the Biden campaign has put out agendas for the Muslim American community. They put out agendas for the Jewish American community, and I understand they put one out for the Indian American community, but they've not put one out for the Hindu American community, though many organizations have requested them to do so. What do you think about that?
So hi everyone, this is Nisha Charya. I can answer that question, and happy Navratri to everybody. I think these are really, sort of marginal things that people bring up when they don't have substantive questions about the Biden agenda. I think there has been, the Democratic Party platform has historically been apolitical from a religious perspective, as opposed to the Republican platform, which calls for Judeo-Christian values and decisions based on Judeo-Christian positions. The Democratic Party has historically not taken that point of view. And in this case, both the Jewish American community and the Muslim American community have identified themselves culturally along those lines. And culturally, we have identified ourselves till this point as Indian Americans more than we have as Hindu Americans. Now, many can disagree with that correctly and say we are a unique, distinct community. But for the purposes of the campaign, the Democrats have been very consistent that the official party platforms reflect the cultural communities that they're reaching out to. And so that's for the reason for the distinction. And in terms of who is asked for outreach and who's asked for that, I think that's probably a fair question, but it really depends who you ask. If you're asking somebody who's active as a volunteer versus the official campaign, I think there may be differences as to why it's not up there, but officially it's been done across cultural communities through this election.
Does someone from the Trump side want to respond to that?
So my response to that is that that's all well and good, but it still doesn't answer the real issue. Why no mention for the Hindu American platform, and why only the other communities? And to be honest, I was one of the people who wrote at least 6 different letters and really tried hard to reach out to the Biden campaign to get a Hindu American platform beginning in May when the websites came out. And I was never responded to. In fact, I was told that, and I'm probably going to name the person eventually. He said, if you're not going to donate to the campaign, you don't have a place of the table. I'm quoting him. So
Rakesh, if I may, I also would like to ask Nishji a question. If Nishji, if Biden campaign would like to just associate us culturally, is that the only reason why Diwali festival was celebrated? I mean, if they're identifying Muslims as Muslims, Jewish as Jewish, why Hindus were ever excluded? I'll go back to what Nikki Ji was saying. Way long back, we also had a very prominent, respectable personality called Ravi Chaudhary. He was a major. He also mentioned that way back when Biden always recognized Hindus and went to temple and always recognized Hindu leaders. See, he obviously had Hindu leaders in his mind. So why neglect Hindu community then? So if I have to remotely agree with your agenda or answer, then why did he neglect Hindu community? He is pandering to Muslims, but he's not really, he's completely ignoring our community. And why is that?
So Tushar and Nikki, please feel free to jump in if you want to. Tushar, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything is driven by money. It's, I think, very clear. I think Trump is very transactional. You think he's like altruistic about helping Hindu agendas? No, I don't think so. I think it's all money talk. I think even from a point of view, it is not like I want to appease Muslims or I want to appease somebody else. I think we should have equanimity for everyone. And
I didn't ask about Trump. I asked about Biden.
Yes,
so
but I think
Trump. I didn't ask about Trump.
I'm
asking why Biden is appeasing to Muslims.
Yes. So the problem is a lot of Biden donors have come from other communities. I think it's time for us, because we have been so aligned with Trump for such a long time that we have not done enough for our own sake.
No, sir. 80% of Hindus.
The reality is, I think the reality
of Americans voted Biden. 80% of us always voted for Biden.
It's not about the voting. It's about the money. I think the problem has been the money. It's not just the vote. It's money.
Tushar, let me interject for 1 minute.
Dollars were raised in one night by Ramesh Shah. For respectable Ramesh Shah raised 3.5 million. We give the money, we give the votes, but he does not pander to us. Why?
So I would actually like to add something here. That is that all we're basing, Biden, the ability for Biden to see truth is based on how much money we put on the table. If President Trump, so fine, let's bring up Howdy Modi again. Howdy Modi was a bipartisan event. It was not meant to be a Trump rally, and it was not a Trump rally.
Yes.
It actually was a bipartisan event. And if 80% of the community potentially, in terms of votes, voted against him, he came to that community to seek our support. He came to that community because he knew. And guess what? There was not one heckle from the audience. There was not one boo. And in fact, he got 4 standing ovations during that program. So therefore, I think the Hindu community does actually.
This debate is not about Modi, and it's not about Howdy Modi. It's about Hindu Americans and the agenda. Joe Biden.
Exactly, and President Trump articulated an agenda. President Trump articulated an agenda for Hindu Americans at Howdy Modi, and that is
I don't think so. I was there at Howdy Modi, and Trump was definitely very surreptitious. Okay. He was there only for business. He was there only for the votes. I don't think he meant anything.
Guess what? If it is a transactional relationship, then I'm willing to transact. But according to the left and the Democrats, it's submission, and I am not willing to submit to their leftist Marxist agenda.
I believe that Modi took the high road of embracing everybody, all the parties. President Trump, he took President Trump around the stadium. But it was not, Trump was there only for his own good.
So Tusharji, leave Trump out of the picture. Yeah. Biden has been in the administration for 47 years. For 44 years, as Indian Americans and Hindu Americans, for 43 years, we've raised money for Democrats. We have funded. Why are they not pandering to us? Why are they pandering to radical Islam? Why are they pandering to Muslims is the question.
Tusharji, it is really ironic that you just not begged everybody to donate more money and then you blame Trump for being transactional. The irony can be visible for the rest of the community and the audience here. You are beginning to promote transactionalism in support of Democrats, and then you talk about Trump being transactional. Quite the irony.
Obama administration is when all the initiatives of supporting India started. Okay, and Trump has only capitalized on that. There's nothing more that Trump has done. If all the even today, right? Pompeo and Esper have been in talks with Jaishankar to seal the deal, because all these things were started by Joe Biden and President Obama. Actually, it started even before. It started with Bush, and it was carried forward and solidified by by these parties.
Sir, Tusharji,
so
actually,
Obama made a trip to India, came back and started talking about Muslim human rights. He had
Okay.
a glorious trip
Tusharji.
to India, came back and spoke about Muslim human rights.
So,
That's
on that,
the democratic appeasement, and you need to understand this, sir.
got it. So, I just want to, go on to that. We have a lot of questions. And so I just, while I want to encourage the discussion, and this is good because this is actually getting, we're all focused on the betterment of the community. So the second question is actually for the Trump campaign, and it's kind of an extension of what we actually have been discussing, is that, there's been a lot of criticism that questionnaires from Hindu American community have been sent to both the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign. And the Biden campaign responded, and they gave very full answers to all the questions, but the Trump campaign declined to respond. What are someone from the Trump side, Jay? What are your thoughts on that?
So, in all disclosure, in all honesty, I was actually asked to try and get the Trump campaign to respond, because while I am not a Trump campaign representative, I do have deep ties with those who are in the campaign, and I actually found the questionnaire to be completely biased. It was just as biased as the media is against President Trump, and I didn't feel that it was necessary for him to respond, because President Trump has been working in the spirit of Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, because all lives matter, and that includes Hindu Americans, and we should understand his policies that support law and order, that support equity and education as beneficial to our community.
So this is very ironic, that he says Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu, all lives matter, but then he makes such racist statements and he creates this tension and then says, I want to restore law and order. What kind of policy is that?
Are you talking about the statement that Biden made on the campaign, that if you don't vote for me, you're not Black? If you don't, you could extrapolate that if you don't vote for me, you're not Hindu. Yeah, let's not bring about racism.
Biden has been reaching to all factions of society.
Actually, just one request that we're getting is that if everyone can just talk like one at a time. So if you want to talk, I mean, it might be good just to kind of. So does someone want to respond to what Jay said?
Yes, I think here's the fact about why Trump didn't answer. He does not have a policy for Hindu Americans because his policy and his actions have been driven entirely for either wealthy Americans or those who are strongly conservative, whether they're Christian or otherwise. Here's a fact for Hindu Americans. All of our temples have been predominantly closed since March. And I was just on a call with a Hindu faith-based NGO that says their donations are going to be down 23% this year for two specific reasons. One is because of the economy and the economic shutdown. And the other is because of the public health concerns that people cannot go to Hindu festivals and Hindu events. And so this is real. This is issues affecting every one of our communities, weddings, pujas, everything. And it's because the president has not had a policy on COVID-19 and has not had an embrace of science. And so our Hindu communities are suffering significant financial distress because of a lack of policy. So whether it's Biden or Trump, having an answer to questionnaire is not the issue here. The issue is how are we going to make up that 23% for our temples and our communities and really, give our community the resources it needs to introduce itself to America in the next decade.
Right, and so Kamala Harris, I'm sure, is that's why she is saying that she will not endorse a vaccine if it comes out, in the Trump administration, because she clearly does not embrace science. She clearly does not believe in the integrity of our medical professionals who are working around the clock to help develop such a vaccine. She clearly wants to keep the economy shut down. But she wants to allow rioting in the streets and bail out rioters who destroy minority-owned businesses, including Hindu-owned businesses. In fact, there was the Hindu-owned business.
Correct that.
Sorry, just one at a time. Tusharji, you want to say something?
Yeah. So just a rebuttal to that, Mr. Kansara, I think Senator Harris said that she won't endorse a vaccine if she won't have the vaccine if it's endorsed by Trump. So it is not like she's not believing in the scientific or the medical community.
Because President Trump himself is in a laboratory developing it. It's being developed by scientists.
Okay.
Tusharji, we are all very educated.
Tusharji, thanks for
We all
making
know
our
the
point.
culture.
Okay, so
It's all
actually,
due respect.
sorry, we're going to go on to the second topic, which is foreign policy. And the main issue with foreign policy is like we want to focus on the issues that are affecting Hindu Americans in this country, and it's the fact that a lot of things that are happening in India and other countries are being weaponized against Hindus here. And we really want to see kind of what both candidates will respond to what's going on with regards to our community. So first, I'm going to call on the Biden side. Nikki is going to talk about the pro-Biden on the foreign policy side. Nikki?
Yeah, so I believe that VP Biden's foreign policy agenda is based on reason, goodwill, and respect for all people. He has deep exposure to foreign policy matters based on leadership as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and also as the VP of the United States, traveling across the world, interacting with foreign leaders and communities. And what we need for a foreign policy front is to restore America's credibility with foreign leaders and global relations. And it underpins issues on climate-related issues, immigration, global security, and development. And it's to be noted that Vice President Biden and Prime Minister Modi share a strong relationship based on their first interaction in 2014. And under the Obama-Biden administration, we have seen significant progress on US-India strategic partnerships, which are very, very important. Issues related to education, trade, security, and defense cooperation, education and anti-terrorism cooperation. So these issues really, in the last 4 years, we have seen decrease in terms of trade. As the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden oversaw a 73% increase in overall trade between US and India. That's a major contribution. On human rights, Vice President Biden cares deeply about human rights and treatment of all minorities, religious minorities everywhere, including the oppression of Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan, and unequivocally disagreeing with President Trump on his efforts to squash the flow of immigration from India to the US. And President Biden has condemned the Trump administration's H-1B visa freeze, announced that if elected, he would immediately end Trump's immigration ban in the first 100 days of the presidency. This is value-based voting. And I believe that Joe Biden has those values to be able to compete in this 21st century and be able to connect with foreign leaders and governments to achieve some real world problems that we're currently facing.
Thank you, Nikki. I'd like to call on Utsav to talk about the pro-Trump side on foreign policy. Utsav, you're muted. Sorry.
Utsav, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Like on the issue of domestic matter, the main problem here is also tokenism, which is the problem of the Biden-Harris ticket. More than 20 million Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs were given a second chance in life by the Trump administration by keeping their hands-off approach from the CAA and the removal of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. I repeat, 20 million Hindus got a second chance in life. And that's more than the population of New Jersey and New York combined. Let that sink in. No amount of namaste, no amount of greetings, no amount of tweets by some Hindu who supports you will ever take that away from the Trump administration. Now, regarding the position against Pakistan, the Trump administration in 2017 took off the table about $500 million of coalition support funds because Pakistan was continuing to support terrorism, radical Islamic terrorism against India and Afghanistan. Another year later, in 2018, he took off another 300 million off the table. That is what real Trump's position has been. Something that the previous Biden administration, when Biden was in administration, wasn't even dealt with. In fact, Biden, before he got there, was given the highest civilian award of Pakistan, the Nishan-e-Pakistan. And to end here, President Trump's position on the Indo-Pacific has been to embrace the Ramayana Belt Initiative, which creates the Indian Ocean Chord along the countries where the Ramayana is read, adding to it Australia. That is in direct opposition to the de facto Belts and Roads Initiative that has been promoted by China, a Marxist China, and that is a direct threat to the future of Hindu communities around the world.
Thank you, Utsav. So now I'd like to call on Tusharji to please talk about anti-Trump on the foreign policy.
So Trump, I don't know if he even has a foreign policy. I think everything that he has touched has failed, from international issues with Russia, China, Iran, and because China has been an aggressor and a major pest for India. I can tell you over the last 10, 15 years when I've been working with Taiwan, China, how China has become powerful, and they actually had the audacity to actually challenge everybody during the Trump's administration because everything else has failed. Trump has even said that he envies Xi Jinping to become the lifetime president. So he doesn't even care about democratic values. He wants to put his own cronies in place just to appease everyone. The sanctions that he has put on China are a joke. All that has happened is it has made everything expensive, and all the exports that were supposed to stop. US has been sending all their the best technology to China under covert provisions. On the other hand, it has also given China a lot of time to develop their weaponry, develop their technology, which they can of course use against India. And I'm just not sure, how the policies that Trump has played, they're not consistent. They are just waffling one way or the other, and has emboldened all our enemies around the region.
Thank you, Tusharji. Finally, Jay, to talk about the anti-Biden statement on this.
Thank you. So as Utsav alluded to in his response earlier, that yes, in January of 2009, shortly before he was inaugurated as vice president, Joe Biden was in Islamabad. He was receiving the Hilal-e-Pakistan Award, which was the Crescent of Pakistan, which is one of the highest civilian honors that the government of Pakistan can bestow upon somebody. And the reason why he received that is because he wrote the bill as Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman to give Pakistan tens of billions of dollars over the course of the next several years to develop their economy. Now, in theory, that should have been great, and actually that would have actually been of great assistance to Hindus in Pakistan and other religious minorities and other marginalized or groups in Pakistan. But unfortunately, that money, because of lack of accountability from the Obama administration, because of the pandering to special interests and lobbyists in Washington, D.C., that money went into the hands of the military, and it was perpetrated. That further perpetrated terror attacks on both fronts of its borders. One was Afghanistan, and one is India. Now let's talk about Hindus in Afghanistan. Hindus in Afghanistan are actually fleeing today. There may be, by next year, no more Hindus in Afghanistan. Now I'm sure my friends on the other side are going to say, oh, well, Trump is removing all the troops from Afghanistan. That is because for 10 plus years, Pakistan was given all of this funding and their military just became so strong while American soldiers were being murdered because of Pakistani militant organizations supporting the Taliban and the Haqqani network in Pakistan. So please don't pander and don't pretend like that money did not have an effect. And American soldiers are tired. Americans are tired of that war. And thankfully, President Trump is actually supporting India's position in the region to be the refuge for Hindu minorities across the region, including Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Whereas on your campaign's webpage, he censures India for providing that place of sanctuary, of refuge. And so therefore, I would just like to reiterate that Biden has been absolutely destructive to Hindu communities across the world. Now, let's also bring the Indo-Pacific in. The reason why China has been so brazen and aggressive is because Biden said, oh, are you serious? Rising China, that's not going to take our That's not going to take away anything from us, or that, they're not going to eat our lunch. All I have to say with that is, come on, man. We saw that happening, and it's unfortunately American jobs also went away, the American economy. That's why the American economy is in the doldrums right now, is because we did not have a manufacturing base to keep up with. And therefore it's absolutely, and Hindus living in the South China Sea or in the Indo-Pacific region have suffered tremendously because of the rise of communist China, because of our industries that have been fled there to strengthen the Communist Chinese Party's military and their ability to be aggressive in that region, including especially towards Nepal.
Okay, so we've gotten a couple of questions on things that you guys have commented on. I'll just start with something that was just said, and this is for the Biden side first, that Biden recently expressed support for accelerated asylum for Sikhs and Hindus that are being persecuted in Afghanistan. But yet it seems that many in the Democratic Party, Biden included, and Kamala Harris, have explicitly opposed essentially the same law in India to help refugees. Many consider this to be a double standard that is pandering to one side at the expense of Hindu Americans. Does someone have any thoughts on that? Oh, on the Biden side first, yeah.
No, I can go again. Tushar, Nikki, feel free to jump in. Again, I think Vice President Biden has made one comment on the India situation, and that was just a very short comment. What I would say is my brother-in-law actually served in the United States Marines and was in.
Nish, can you please check your microphone? We can't properly hear you. Maybe you want to get closer to the microphone.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying is, my brother-in-law served in Afghanistan in the United States Marine Corps, and he served very bravely for the United States. But he also practices Hindu faith while he was there. And he will tell you unequivocally that the elimination of American troops there, the reduction of American troops there, while it may be time in the broad picture, is the thing that has most strengthened the Taliban, it strengthened the Pakistani government under Imran Khan, and is what is causing Hindus to flee Afghanistan versus the strong government structure that's been there for 20 years. So, to blame that on Biden doesn't make any sense, because Trump has been president for 4 years. What I'll say about the Democratic Party is it's always had an inclusive policy for refugees. It has been a welcoming country, just like we say at the Statue of Liberty, give me you're tired, you're weak, you're poor, those yearning to be free. And under Biden presidency, we're going to go back to that policy where the most vulnerable in the world, including the Nepali Hindus who came here after the earthquake and were deported by President Trump, can stay here and be productive members of our community in our country. And so I think Vice President Biden was speaking primarily about what America needs to return to, which is its inclusive nature.
Someone on the Trump side want to respond?
Jay, you want to go? So the main issue here, again, doesn't address the hypocrisy of the problem. There are a couple of thousand Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan who are being fully embraced, and thankfully so, by the Biden team, leaving aside 19.99 million Hindus in the rest of the Indian subcontinent who are facing the exact same situation in Pakistan and Bangladesh, and completely going hammer and tongue against India for helping them out. Like from city council resolutions, like there have been 6 cities, all Democrat-led, who have actually vilified this as if it's a crime against humanity. I mean, the Biden campaign at least could have said something about it, let that alone. They have actually supported it, both Biden and Kamala Harris. So I think this hypocrisy of being inclusive and all, it's very selective. It's very, as Tusharji very rightly pointed out, transactional, because the Hindu community is not giving enough money, I guess. I guess we should work harder and make more money and try to give it to the Biden campaign to maybe get a web page one day before the elections.
So I would like to refute.
And I would also, please, Tushar, you go first, and then I'll go.
So first of all, I don't think anybody is against getting the Hindu refugees from those countries. I think if you see the argument, and this is a matter of dialogue, and this is a matter of education for some of the people in the US from both the sides, just because Trump has kept his mouth shut over this issue doesn't mean he really embraces or understands it. I don't think people are saying that don't bring the Hindu refugees or let their persecution continue to happen. They are only saying that whoever who has come to the country, let them stay there. And this is a matter of India's sovereignty. And India is a big boy, you know. They don't need to listen to anybody about this issue. And they have taken steps to completely do whatever they want to do. So I'm not saying that. I don't think anybody in the administration, Biden administration, has ever said or is that they don't want to give refuge to the Hindus who have been persecuted or who have come from Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Pakistan, neighboring countries. I don't think there was any issue for that. In fact, their only take was why only the Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, and Sikhs. I think that was the issue.
But
So
Tusharji,
I wanted to respond to this. Let me respond to this for a minute. Tusharji, thank you for again highlighting the point that everybody needs to be educated. I completely agree with you. The problem here is that the Biden side is not educated and it still continues to go on its crazy path of activism. The Trump side may not be enough educated equally, but they understand and trust a fellow democracy called India. What the Biden side has done is create more Hindu phobia through their grassroots level, absolutely vile and poisonous campaign in this.
I don't think.
And that is where I think the education.
I think Trump has created phobia for everybody other than whites. You know, I think that is the problem.
Maybe this is a point of question for you, Jay. You said that you've been a part of the Washington establishment engaging Hindu Americans with the Trump administration. How many times have you guys met with President Trump or his aides around issues important to Hindu American community, both here domestically and then abroad? How many times have you consulted with them, and what have been the outcomes of the results?
Thank you so much, Nikki, for that question. I do appreciate it. First and foremost.
By the way, maybe it's lack of perspective, but is it out out in the public? Is it out people discussing that how many times people have met with President Trump or his aides on Hindu American issues?
Okay, sure. So as someone who worked for the Hindu American Foundation for 9 years in Washington, D.C., I was at the State Department at least once a month under both administrations, at least once a month, addressing issues of human rights. I will tell you unequivocally that I'm getting that I used to get, and I still do engage, even though I'm not officially part of HAF, I do engage the State Department still on these issues because I get calls from Hindus across the diaspora who are very upset or they are worried for their lives. I get a far better response from State Department officials especially politically appointed officials, not especially politically appointed officials under Trump, regarding these issues, and including the Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. And I must say that also I was called in for a meeting when there were groups who were meeting the White House to discuss, their complaints about the Hindu community domestically and in India. I was actually invited by the White House to sit in on that meeting and actually comment on behalf of the Hindu American community under the Trump administration. So, and I'm also on their, I also get in calls from them regularly to discuss issues or matters of concern for the Hindu community or matters of faith, and they seek Hindu perspective frequently. And so I must say that the Trump administration is far more inclusive of Hindu thought and Hindu perspectives than the alternative, than the Biden-Obama administration ever was. And I say that very honestly. And what's up? Did you want to add something?
I want to say one thing there, though. So that's wonderful, Jay, and I take you for your word that you've been there a lot and they've been listening to you. The fact of the matter is that the Trump administration has turned off immigration and the ability for refugees to come to the United States, whether it's the millions of Hindus affected by CAA, whether it's Afghan Hindus. It's gone ahead and deported, I think it was 15,000 Nepali Hindus who came here as a result of the earthquake. So talk is one thing, and welcoming you at the State Department is one thing, and that's an important thing. Let's not doubt that. But the fact of the matter is that the State Department has put in place policies that have kept Hindus out of the United States, particularly those that need to come here for religious persecution, economic necessity, whatever it might be. So the actions speak much louder than the words in those meetings.
And the State Department has absolutely prioritized the safety of Hindus in the countries of their origin with their foreign policy, such as countering China's aggression in the South China Sea and in the Indo-Pacific, countering Islamic extremism, so that they don't actually have to come here as refugees. They can actually live in their countries of native origin, where they can live their lives to their full extent and to their full potential in those countries. So I will say,
I understand.
absolutely.
I think they want to be here.
But on the practical side, what have been some of the outcomes in the last 4 years? And, if there have been outcomes, then has that trickled down from the White House to the state to local governments in terms of their abilities to connect with the Hindu American community and being able to seek their voice and get their engagement? There has to be some sort of a open accountability factor or a mechanism where you communicate directly to the people who are voting for you.
So one thing that the Trump administration did that the Biden administration never would do, and in fact, I would fear that if Biden is elected president, he would actually reverse this, is Trump labeled or designated Pakistan as a country of particular concern. This designation was put into law by the International Religious Freedom Act, and we can discuss, what the origins of that act were, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is the Hindu community in America was requesting the administration, particularly the Obama administration, to do this, and they refused to. Trump actually took that measure and did it, and he also used the power of the purse by limiting all that money that was given for the past decade to Pakistan, strengthening its military so that it could carry out terrorist attacks against Hindus across the region and other communities, even including Pakistan's own people, Hindus and
well,
not.
after the
Can I finish my point, and then you can rebut? So therefore, President Trump finally took that action, and to me, that speaks louder than anything President Obama and Vice President Biden ever did.
It's to be pointed out that in 2008, after the Mumbai attacks, it was Vice President Biden who took a delegation to Pakistan to make them understand that these forces are working and that they should be able to work with the Indian government in terms of removing
and so he rewarded them by enacting the law that gave them tens of billions of dollars. Vice President Biden's marquee legislation leaving the Senate Foreign Relations Committee was the Pakistan Economic Development Assistance Act. He literally gave them tens of billions of dollars during his administration.
So
this is just laughable to me. I'm sorry.
No, it's
One second. Nish, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so I'd like to make one point on the foreign policy side that hasn't been brought up so far. So the reality is all major commentators who are not partisan have also said that Prime Minister Modi will get along just as well with President Biden once he's elected on November 3rd as he has in public been with President Trump. And the reality is, I'd like to point out that the BJP agenda in India actually is fairly progressive, in line with the Democratic Party. So when you look at some of Prime Minister Modi's biggest agenda items, Jan Dhan Yojana, which was free bank accounts, you look at Aadhaar and connecting people to the system, you look at Swachh Bharat, you look at Made in India. These are all efforts to progressively, economically, and socially empower Indians from the bottom everywhere and connect them to society so they have a chance for success and survival. And in many cases, Swachh Bharat and others, he's tied faith very closely to that agenda. And that is an agenda of progressive economics that we all see on the Biden side. It's not tax cuts for the wealthy. Modi hasn't done tax cuts for the wealthy. It hasn't been packing the court with ideological conservatives. Modi has reached out across the board on that front. What we're seeing is a progressive agenda that has a lot in common with Biden and Modi, much more in practice than Trump and Modi have. And we see it also on COVID. You know, if India vaccinates 1 million people a day when we have a COVID vaccine, it'll still take 4 years to vaccinate the country. That's way too much time. The combined global leadership between Biden and Modi to share vaccines and not look at America first, but to combine and bring it can drop that number by hopefully 50%, but I don't know. But either way, that's a foreign policy that we can all get behind, because there's 1 billion Hindus at risk for COVID-19. There's 5 million in America, maybe 15 million, as Ajay has said. So this is priority, is a joint foreign policy that's economically progressive and addresses COVID.
So a last comment from
And
Sri-
to add to that, it was
Nikki, I'm sorry, I just want to give Srilekha ji a chance. I think she's been wanting to say something for a while. Go ahead.
No,
Sri.
I was just wondering, Nish, there was 8 years of Obama and Biden administration. What kind of progressive policies India and US worked on that really progressed either Bharat or United States? I'm just kind of
trade
curious to know.
by about 700% during the Obama 8 years. It went up all the way to 120 billion. It has now gone down in the last 4 years. Trade. So we've seen a complete
I'm sorry, Ken.
direction.
Hey, Nishit, you have to come closer to the microphone. We lost your last 1 minute of talk.
I said trade went up by 700% during the Obama-Biden years between the United States and India, up to over 100 billion. Biden was the one who called for it to go to 500 billion. The last 4 years, we've seen it drop into negative territory in terms of the growth. So, and President Trump.
I'm very focused on Hindu Americans, right? That's kind of my focus.
That has not been with the last
What
20 minutes.
policies did we put in place that really benefited Hindu Americans?
It affects Hindu Americans, Sriji.
No, the last talk was about international relations with with India and Hindus in India, and I think this is a major point of concern, in that even, for example, Harley Davidson, that's not a bike that is really suited for Indian conditions, Indian roads, and the Indian psyche and the size of the people. But Trump wanted to slap sanctions on India so that they could consume certain number of. What kind of bullying is this? Even in the trade with India, they have had these issues. Anything that Trump does with India is from a punitive point of view. There's nothing there's nothing about a friendship or a proper policy that he has towards India.
I must say that it is this kind of friendship that the Biden campaign has that has made all their leaders from top to bottom go nuts over criticizing Narendra Modi for the policy of CAA, bringing it back to the topic of Hindus. It is that kind of approach that has them, all of them. You look at Biden, you look at Kamala Harris, you look at members of the Congress, you look at Pramila Jayapal, you look at Ro Khanna, across the board, the Democratic platform has gone nuts over Narendra Modi, who, as Nishit rightfully pointed out, is very progressive. So it's actually the credit of Trump and Trump's platform that he identifies and understands Narendra Modi's progressive platform. And in some way that makes Trump also somewhat progressive and a little different from the other members of previous Republican presidents. That is what Jay was talking about, which is that he has out of the box thinking. And I really agree with Nishit that, yeah, Narendra Modi is progressive, and that's why he gets along so well with Trump. I do not think that Biden will find
does
it that
not have progressive policies at all. Look at his policy on alternate energy. He wants to drill coal. He wants to drill fossil fuels. So what kind of progressive policy is that? It's going to affect everyone. And what about his progressive policy with Saudi Arabia and the murder of Khashoggi?
Okay, I will want to talk about, because I have dealt with the issue of Saudi Arabia and Sunni radical Islamism.
I just need to
aggressive policy, which he has.
Yeah,
Tushar, just think about recent Abraham Accord. Which American president had the guts to take care of Abraham Accord? Isn't that a smart foreign policy from Trump?
To add to that, the populations of Dubai and Bahrain are actually majority Indian Hindu, so they will benefit from the Abraham Accords.
So we're going to go on to the third topic. Sorry,
before we do that, I just want to make a final point. Utsavji, you mentioned the relationship between Modi ji and Trump. I believe that the Obama Narendra Modi ji friendship was a genuine one. based on deep mutual respect, honesty, and that led to progressive policies that affected so many people, both in India as well as here in the United States.
That
The amount of
explains.
entrepreneurs who have had access to funding, to opportunities, it was because of VP Biden that we got the nuclear deal. It was because of him that we have a transition to clean energy
we're
economy.
actually,
So
It
where
is
are we
because of
talking
VP
about? And
Biden that
also-
India was sanctioned on the cryogenic engine. That is what the truth is. And it is also that explains, Nikki, why nobody from the Democratic leadership showed up at the Howdy Modi event. It is really an explanation.
Actually,
We cannot
that's
use
untrue.
Howdy Modi
Majority
as a
Leader
factor
Hoyer,
to
Majority
judge our
Leader Hoyer
decisions.
came. So as a
There
point of
was-
clarification,
so,
that's
sorry,
I
we're
am-
going to move on to the third topics. We
No,
have one
Raki,
more.
I will have to intervene here. We cannot use Howdy Modi as a factor for relationship building. It is just two events that we're talking about. How do you justify someone who cannot even pronounce Swami Vivekananda and Sachin Tendulkar in India to be a,
I'm
to be a
sorry.
person to be able to connect?
I'm going to
with
ask
the
a
Indian
question to the
people?
Biden-Harris team. Is Senator Harris's first
I
name
will
How do
tell
you
Kamala
not
or
pronounce your
Kamala?
own name as Kamala?
No,
Okay,
I
all
will
right,
tell you
sorry,
that is-
Sorry,
that is why we have a
to move
movement.
on. So the
And
third topic.
To re-educate her on
No,
how to
no,
pronounce
no.
her name?
That is why we have a movement where people
Okay,
are
so,
going against
we're
him.
going to move on to the third topic. So the third issue is on party stances. And this has been, a big topic in terms of, what the Republican Party has typically done with regards to the Hindu American community and where the Democratic Party currently is with regards to the Hindu American community. And so to start off this discussion, I'd like to start with the pro-Republican Party side. Srilekha ji will present that for us. Srilekha ji.
Sure. Thank you, Rakhi ji and Ajay Bara, and thank you to my fellow panelists and passionate panelists. Namaste. Namaste to everyone. I'm a mom. Like majority of us, I was a Democratic voter in the past. I have voted for Obama. But the more I learned about the policies and the more I learned about the politics behind it, I started leaning Republican and I became very conservative. And now I consider myself as a proud Hindu American conservative Republican, and I actually ran for an office under the same platform. And I will go back to what Nikki Bhaiya said, I believe. I believe it was Nikki Bhaiya that pointed out, saying that I never had to actually run under the platform of South Asian at all. I got on every stage saying that I'm a Hindu American conservative Republican, never had to disguise myself under South Asian platform like my Democratic Hindu candidates had to do in my neighboring counties. And I think this is where Nikki Bhaiya's comment came. He spit out some Democratic leader's name. And I also want to say that Republican Party, I proudly say that they also encourage Hindu Americans. For example, we have a Ohio current US representative that's trying to run for Senate, who is Neeraj Antani Bhaiya. Thanks to Trump's administration leadership, I proudly say that he's done a very good job with defense partnership, counter-terrorism efforts, and economic ties. And I think whether my Democratic friends like to think or not, I think we are stronger than ever. I also would like to say that he elevated Hindu Americans onto the world stage, that we never have to get into the umbrella of South Asians. We can proudly say we are Hindu Americans at this point. Trump administration party, again, for somebody that works in the party, can say that we are anti-fascist left, pro-free market, pro-family narrative, anti-terrorism, anti-China, and Pakistan. These are all Hindu American stances. I mean, no Hindu American can say that we don't stand for those. Again, being affluent, our Hindu American community will definitely benefit from Trump's favorable tax policy, merit-based education, meritocracy is something we surely believe in. And I also want to say merit-based immigration policies Trump has adopted is something that I believe we all believe in. And the party stands on law and order is what, as Hindu Americans, we believe in order to make sure that we don't believe in defunding the police. In fact, we believe in defending our police so our families can stay safe and secure. Again, talking from party stance, Hindu American communities has been vilified as being intolerant, and that doesn't sit very well with me as a Hindu American. And going back to Biden and Harris, we not only need to take care of ourselves, but I also think we need to take care of our fellow brothers and sisters that are living in as a Hindu American diaspora, living as minorities in other countries. And I can say that if Chinese aggression continues to go this way, pro-Chinese leaders, as Biden and Harris, will not draft policies to keep them safe. Hence, I urge you to support, as a party stance, that we all need to support as Hindu Americans Trump and get him to be reelected again.
Thank you, Srilekha-ji. So now I'd like to call on Nishit for the pro-Democratic Party side.
Thank you again. Nothing says supporting a Hindu American agenda more than putting somebody who is raised as a Hindu on the ticket. Kamala Harris is one step away from the presidency, and she knows our community. She talked about her chittis on her acceptance speech. She knows our community. She knows our values, our festivals. And it's incredible that in America, we may have somebody who's part Hindu at the table before we've had somebody who's Jewish or even only one Catholic today. Joe Biden would be the second. And it's quite amazing that we're at that position. And having her there is representative of the Democratic Party. You know, my parents and so many of you on this call came to the United States in 1965 because of an immigration law that was passed predominantly by Democrats to the opposition of most Republicans. And it was not faith-based. It was based on skills that were needed in the United States. But because family is so important to us, we were fortunate enough that Democrats looked at family as the factor around which to bring additional members of your family to the United States. And we've seen the growth of the diaspora for that reason. In the late 70s and 80s, people under the names Shah and Patel and Singh were denied loans from American banks because of their name and because they were recent immigrants. And it was Democrats at the local and national level who fought for that and who defeated those laws, what's called redlining. And we've seen the difference now that everywhere, no matter what your name is, you can start a tech company if you have a South Indian name. You can start a Wall Street trading firm if you have a Gujarati name. It doesn't matter. And those were Democrats who fought for that. In 1974, it was Joe Biden who, after India tested nuclear weapons, who then made sure that India didn't get sanctions so that India could continue to grow into a emerging power that it's become today. And looking at it from a personal perspective, I see a Democratic Party where the majority of Indian Americans who are elected are practicing Hindus, and they're Democrats. And it's because the values of our faith align with the progressive, inclusive agenda. Our faith calls for us to recognize the heavens, the earth, and all the world's creatures as part of our faith, part of our community, recognizes climate change. So when I look at Joe Biden, I look at what he's nominated when he was vice president. Over 500 Hindu Americans served in the Biden administration, according to Anju Bhargava, who really led the charge on that. They made Diwali into what it is, an event, not just a proclamation, which I was fortunate to do, and the Bush has continued, but into a full event. And I'd like to say that the party platform for the Democrats will be what we need it to be. It'll be to fight COVID and defeat this and get our economy going, which will benefit the 5 to 10 million Hindus in America and the billion Hindus in India. And that's what we need to do. We need to embrace COVID, fight for the economy, and recognize race relations, climate change, and other things as critical to our faith and our success in America.
Well, thank you so much, Nish. So Srilekha-ji will present the anti-Democratic Party side. Srilekha-ji.
Nish, I want to tell you that she's not a practicing Hindu, just so you know. So I don't want to say you were lying, but you were just.
I've worked with Kamala Harris, and she is. I've seen it with my own eyes.
She's not practicing dharma. Let me say that.
Have you been in a room with her during the holiday?
So
okay, I have.
So Nish, actually, just sorry, we can address this in the question and answer. But Srilekha-ji, go ahead and you have your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Let me start off by saying that Biden is an establishment and belongs to a seasoned political class. In 47 years of his public life, he's never done anything substantial favoring Hindu Americans. Kamala Harris, although her mother is of Indian descent, she's never ever acknowledged her Indian roots. And the community clearly sees that through her hypocrisy. I believe Utsavji was saying that sudden affection through her tweets and wishes and dosa making, idli making is definitely her political opportunism. Pramila Jayapal, another Hindu American from the Democratic Party, intentionally misled America into believing that lawful constitutional integration of Jammu Kashmir was iniquitous. The aftermath of it has been that Hindu community has been unnaturally vilified. And Utsavji brought it up, and I have to, because I did puja today as Navratri second day. Meena Harris, Kamala Harris' sister, tweeted and deleted a picture of Kamala Harris as Mata Durga, which quite shook me as a Hindu American. With such a track record, Democrats in power with Joe Biden at the helm will be toxic for Hindu Americans. According to Biden, Antifa is just an idea. Gandhi Memorial was defaced with a profane graffiti during Antifa-led riots. Neither Joe Biden nor Kamala Harris had any remarks. I don't think Kamala Harris, freedom fighter grandfather that she continues to talk about just to kind of attract the Hindu Americans, would be very proud of her actions, or should I say her non-actions. In contrast, President Trump, a president of law and order, as we can see, has referenced the defacement of the Gandhi Memorial as a tragedy of leftist extremism in lieu of Gandhi Jayanti celebrations. In fact, he sent Laura Trump paid tribute to Gandhi on Gandhi Jayanti alongside of Hindu Americans just like me. To my surprise, I also want to bring up our dear Ro Khanna. He hasn't done much for Hindu Americans too from policy perspective. And to my dismay, I in fact love Tulsi Gabbard, a Hindu American who took the oath on Bhagavad Gita, faced Hindu phobia amongst her Democratic peers. She is infinitely more qualified than Harris in whichever way you see. Of the 7 Democratic candidates who earned delegates during the presidential primaries, she was the only non-white candidate that was not offered a speaking slot during the 4-night event. How is Democratic Party supporting Hindu Americans? And during the next question and answer sessions, I really want you to answer this. The website of Democratic candidates who claim to be half Indian does not have a page for Hindu Americans, but has a page for other religions. What does that say? But again, please do not forget to answer about Tulsi. Why was she not allowed into DNC? From this, that tells me the Democrats have shown intense hatred for Hindu Americans. Biden's Democratic Party first injected hateful anti-Hindu rhetoric into home states of California's middle school textbooks as well. And when Hindu American parents filed lawsuits, the Democrats used their appointees in the judiciary system, and there was no justice also. So this is what is happening on our educational system at all levels. And this is very disappointing that it is happening under democratic law. I'm sorry. So from whichever point I see, I'm just not sure how Democrats are supporting our Hindu Americans.
So finally, the Republican Party statement will be given by Nish.
Oh, I'm getting the poll here in the middle, but so I would say the Trump administration has had 4 years to develop a platform that can benefit the Hindu American community. And I think we know that nothing has been accomplished. Generally, I take the view that the Trump administration has actually not done a lot of anything other than the tax cut. But in this case, the president has really made toxic the public debate in America. Until recently, he has not really spoken out against white supremacists. And let's be clear, white supremacy is the greatest threat to Hindu Americans in this country because they fundamentally do not believe in Hinduism as an equal faith. They do not believe in people of a different color as part of the American agenda. And while President Trump has not said he is a white supremacist, he's certainly allowed these groups to flourish. And we've seen hate crimes, including those against Hindu Americans, increase significantly. So I think the way he has poisoned the American debate is the primary reason why I would not support President Trump. But when we look at the policies of the Republican Party, let's start again with COVID, which is affecting 5 million Hindu Americans. That means 80,000 at least have contracted it based on the numbers. That's the significant number of our friends and family in our communities. The president does not believe in the science of masks. He does not believe in the science of social distancing. And that is causing harm to the entire American populace from a healthcare perspective. The president, in addition, does not believe the science behind climate change. And as I said before, as Hindus, we believe in the unity of all objects, animate or not, as part of our faith. Climate change is real, greenhouse gas emissions are real, and it is most definitely affecting the 1.3 billion citizens of India, including the billion who are Hindu. And so the Vice President Biden's stance and President Trump's non-stance on climate change, economic growth, COVID, are all reasons why the Republican Party is in the wrong place and time in history on these matters. And I think we will show that Vice President Biden, when he comes into office and reverses these trends, will get America right back on track where it needs to be. And I look forward to helping that president achieve that mission.
Thank you, Nish.
And
So,
just to add to that, if I may.
so actually, Nikki, okay, go ahead. So you have 30 seconds, yeah.
The science of climate change is really important. We need leadership that can bring us back into the Paris Agreement, because the increase of GHG emissions is not only going to affect our health, but also our financial stability and our way to operate. So it affects everyone. We need a president who is going to be reasonable, science-based, and not just pull out of agreements on the first day of his presidency. So we need somebody who's very credible on these issues to affect our long-term value creation and long-term stability. And that's why we need to vote for
Thank you,
Vice President
Nikki.
Biden.
So actually the first question that we have is actually for the Trump side. It says, given the Hindu phobia, anti-India sentiments being exhibited by individuals across the country, especially in cases that, what happened with Srinivas Kuchibutla in Kansas, what has the Trump administration done to curb this trend and the senseless violence associated with it? And then as a follow-up to that question, would the close relationship between some of the conservative Christian groups and other supremacist groups and the Republican Party come at the expense of Hindus in this country?
So I'd like to take that question. As somebody who went to Kansas shortly after the tragic murder of Srinivas Kuchibutla, I worked directly with the Republican governor, then Sam Brownback, who now became the ambassador for international religious freedom. And we actually changed the conversation about hate crimes within the Republican Party then. And the Trump administration made it very clear to us that they were going to take the issue of hate crimes head on, and they actually have. In fact, the former legal counsel of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, in a roundtable meeting that we had with the Department of Justice, who was in the early years of the Trump administration, made it very clear that the Trump administration is taking hate crimes very seriously. In fact, they had actually prosecuted more hate crimes than the Obama administration. This goes to my point about law and order. These are issues of law and order. If we defund the police, then they will not be able to respond when we call 911. And it's absolutely ludicrous, and it's adharmic to me that Hindus would be supporting a platform that would be defunding the police. And we should be supporting them. We should be tying Raksha Bandhan on them every year. We should be celebrating them. We should be inviting them to our mandirs and giving them the honor and that they deserve as law enforcement officers, because we will be able to, because they have put their lives on the lines for us. With regards to your second question, could you actually repeat it again?
Yeah, sure. The second question is the close relationship between some of the conservative Christian groups and white supremacist groups in the Republican Party. Would that come at a cost to the Hindus?
So I would like to give another example about this, and that's in Kentucky. I also went to that mandir when it got vandalized, which the Biden campaign loves to, token things that they put on. Actually, we had the governor of Kentucky come out to that, and he decried the vandalism that happened. And yes, it was Christian, Christian nationalistic graffiti that was all over the walls of that mandir, but he condemned it, and the police arrested the perpetrator and they put him to trial. And to say that Christian organizations are discriminating or are effectively able to suppress the voices of Hindus in America is actually, I don't see it, unfortunately. Fortunately, I don't see it, because it's simply not happening. And I actually find much more respect in circles with regards to religious communities, especially Christian communities, in my anecdotal experience. Like I was actually invited by the president or by the dean of Liberty University, Dave Bratt, to speak about Hindu issues, and especially the confluence between Hindus and Christians in Pakistan. I was invited by Liberty University. I have not been able to go yet, but that means that there's a real paradigm shift. And actually, President Trump has made it very clear that that we will not that his administration does not discriminate against different religions, especially Hindus. And this is actually something that we should be celebrating. The Hindu, and so I'll let Srilekha, who also works with different communities.
I wanted to add something quickly, Srilekha ji, to Nish's speech about being inclusive. The Biden administration was so inclusive during the Diwali events that in 2012 they invited ISNA, Islamic Society of North America, as one of the main organizations to be at the Diwali event. Now, let our audiences I want them to know.
Not just be at the event, to speak at the event.
To speak at the event. And Islamic Society of North America is actually an organization that supports Hizbul Mujahideen, which is a terrorist organization declared by the United Nations, India, and America. So for ISNA to be at the first Diwali event as a speaker shows the inclusiveness of the Biden campaign. And I really want our audience to know that.
So I'll go back to defunding the police. So for the past literally 16 weeks, and since all the Antifa riots have happened, we have 12 Board of Supervisors in Fairfax County. Out of 12 Board of Supervisors, 11 of them are Democrats. They are the ones that are rooting for defunding the police. One supervisor is the Republican supervisor, them, and Republican Party has feverishly been fighting. And I am spearheading what is called as Bolster the Blue movement, along with another lady called Brenda Tillett. And every Friday we have rallies near Government Center, and we go and speak at the Board of Supervisors meeting. And we have been very successful in making sure we are stopping this defunding the police.
I think the defunding the police issue is not because that the Democrats don't. It's not about defunding the police. Okay, the point is there's racist, fascist states, as well as the injustices done to a lot of Black people highlighted. And that is why that is all the work of our president today. You know, these riots did not happen before. These kind of riots were because of the statements.
Ferguson, Baltimore,
On the
injustices against Black Americans were happening under Obama as well.
You guys, sorry, actually, I'm gonna stop
nobody
this
at the top
discussion.
level.
I have a question. I have a question for the Biden side, and we're already a little over. I've got one last question, and we're going to do concluding thoughts. 2 minutes from both sides, and then we'll end this question is a question that's come up repeatedly in the questions that were submitted. At the end of 2019, President Obama warned the Democratic Party, so this is for the Biden camp, warned the Democratic Party about the danger of the party moving too far to the left, towards the progressive left. Yet in 2020, the Democratic Party was moving in that direction. After winning the nomination, Biden convened a unity task that not only included Bernie Sanders, but also Pramila Jayapal. His platform has been called the most progressive Democratic platform in decades. What are your thoughts on Biden's ability to keep the progressive left, which are perceived to be very anti-India, very anti-Hindu in their rhetoric, in check? So we have only 2 minutes for this so that we can conclude this event.
I'll just say really quickly, I think it's going to be a very pro-Hindu progressive policy. One of our friends from our HSC days, Sonal Shah, was very active in leading that progressive task force. And it's going to be more progressive because of the economic state of our country. But Biden has been very straight down the middle. He hasn't said any of this nonsense about defunding the police or taxing the wealthy. It's going to be straight up the middle, progressive, more use of government to benefit the lives of people affected by COVID and this economic contraction. And I think that's the thing we want to emphasize, that the progressiveness relates to taxes, not to social policy per se, which will stay where the Democratic Party has been for 50 years, which is around inclusiveness of people and thoughts and backgrounds, no matter where they're from.
Okay, so Trump side, does someone want to respond for 1 minute? Or
Jay?
Sorry, I'm trying to get sorry. Yes, I remember when Sonal Shah was appointed, and I remember the vitriol that she had to face as an appointee in the Obama administration because of her Hindu background and the background of her family. And unfortunately, not very many Democrats came to her aid at that time. Thankfully she was able to be appointed, but
she served for 8 years. Of course they came to her defense. If they didn't come to her defense, she wouldn't have served for 8 years.
they did not stop the Hindu-phobic attacks, though, that have resonated and have only gotten stronger since then in your side, in your party. So please don't pander to me.
They were not Democrats. They were communists.
I just want to add one more point, that even now, as we speak, Sonal Shah, Tulsi Gabbard, Padma Kuppa, Sri Kulkarni, all Democrats are being directly targeted. Open Twitter and Google Peter Frederick, somebody who has been promoted by a Democrat lawmaker named Ro Khanna. They are being targeted right now, and the Democratic Party doesn't have the ability to speak against that. It took a new congressional candidate, Nisha Sharma, a Republican candidate from California. It took her, who nobody knows her, it took her to come out and tweet against this and link all these dots together and expose who Peter Frederick was. This is the nature of the politics in America today that everybody needs to look into.
I think we know anybody can tweet.
Nish, as soon as this is over, please take the phone and call Padma Kopa and ask for experience, sir.
I'm happy to do that, but we know anybody can tweet. It doesn't have to be true. Our president has proven that.
Please don't pander. Please.
Yes,
certainly
and
agree.
Mina
No,
Harris can
nobody
also
can tweet
tweet
it, but
a
Rohit
very
can tweet.
obnoxious picture that threatens the life of the
Please do.
President of the United States too. So yes, anybody can tweet, Nish.
Yeah.
So,
That's
you know, we're
what-
gonna actually, sorry, we have to conclude the event. We're
We have
already
certainly
over.
seen that anybody can tweet.
Yeah, so we can, you know, if I'd like to call first the Biden side, if someone, I think, Nisha, you the one giving the concluding remarks for the Biden side?
I don't think we discussed it. I would defer to Tushar or Nikki because I think I've spoken quite a bit.
Tushar,
What?
Nikki? The concluding remarks
Tusharji,
for the
go
Biden
ahead.
side? You're unmute. Tusharji, you're unmute.
No, go ahead, Nikki ji.
Well, you know, we have significant opportunities to engage, not only and serve, not only as, you know, political elected officials, but at the state level, at the county level, being involved in our congressional races, in our local races, making sure that our voices are heard. Historically, you know, our community may have been at a different stage. Now we're at a different stage. And that's why engaging and making sure that your voices are heard are really important in electoral politics and eventually as how policies are being crafted. So this is where the Hindu community, which is really financially stable, socio-cultural, economic, rich, needs to come in and make sure that their voices are heard. And there are platforms to do that, so we can take this offline if anybody is interested. But you know, this is the platform. The Democratic platform can make it happen. And we have had several readers, and just to note, I know we're running short on time, Sri Lekhaji. We had a call yesterday, on Friday with Padma Kupa, and she has shared her story frequently. And because of these voices, we're better off.
Okay, thank you so much, Nikki. Who's doing it from the Trump? Okay, Jay, go ahead.
So it'll be a combination of all three of us, and I'll be very succinct. President Trump is not a traditional candidate, and he's not a traditional Republican. The Republican Party is going under a transformation right now for the better. In fact, I think he's actually transforming American politics for the better by ensuring that entrenched interests in the swamp are not going to be dictating the key issues in the lives of everyday Americans. And so therefore, Hindu Americans have a better opportunity now than ever before to help transform the Republican Party. And so I encourage all of those who are listening today to get involved in their local Republican Party issues, or get involved with their local patriots or with their local police unions, and find out ways in which we can all help make America great again. Because again, President Trump is working under the spirit of Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. All lives matter. Sri Lekha and then Utsav, please.
So as a person that works within the party locally as well, I can tell you that the local parties, GOP offices are also hell-bent on outreaching. So all I can say is that if they're not outreaching to you, it's because of their lack of knowledge of that particular sector of the community. So I would plead to you that please call your local GOP office and or just knock on their doors. I can tell you, I can assure you that their mindsets are very much open to welcoming you. And if they're not, please call out to me. I mean, I'm Shrulika Pale, I'm on Facebook too. I'll be happy to call on your behalf and knock their doors and get them in. But I can tell you that the mindsets are changing. Local GOP officers understand that they need to increase their base, and they want to be outreaching to local communities and Hindu American communities. They have immense respect for our intellectual abilities, and they want to be welcoming to us. So please reach out to them. Thank you.
And just to add to this, I'm sorry to cut off, but Hindus for Biden is also hosting phone banking efforts. So if any of you would like to get involved in phone banking in swing states, we would really appreciate that. And if you do need to get in touch, we're here.
Thank you. Subji, you wanted to just
Yes, I want to conclude by saying that, you know, this discussion was about two parties, but I'm here because of the civilizational challenges and the historical trauma that the Hindu communities have faced around the world, and that translates into our existence in America and the future generations of Hindus that are going to come in America. I'm here to ask everybody whether the tokenism of somebody who calls herself a Baptist Christian and portrays that all her life can be transformed overnight because of an election into a Hindu vice presidential candidate. Do we want that tokenism? Or do we want our school textbooks, our local city councils, our future businesses, them to be protected as equal citizens of America, whether we want Hindus to have an equal place at the table, not as a minority who has to be treated into a color scale somewhere where we fit into a brown under a South Asian banner, which actually panders to the global Islamist narrative, or whether we thrive as Hindus now and for our future generations.
thank you.
That is the thought we have to go with. That is the politics we have to choose.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. I do want to remind everyone, I've been looking at the chats and I'm sure, it's everyone is, that this is, by far one of the most emotional races for our community because we have, there are issues that are more directly affecting us, which is actually a sign that our community as a whole is maturing. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. But at the end of the day, whether we choose Republican or we choose Democrats, we are still Hindu Americans. And, we all care very deeply about our culture and our community, and that we should go forward, no matter what the results of this election are, that we need to go forward to strengthen not only ourselves and our family, but our community, so that we can progress. It's like in our culture of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that we are one family. And it is the beauty of Hinduism and Hindu culture and Hindu Dharma that we do believe that everyone is together in this. And it is for that reason that, no matter what, we will progress as a culture and as a community. Right? Thank you all so much. I'm so sorry that we went over, but it was a great discussion. One more thing that, in the results, actually, initially in the registration form, 20% of the people had said they were definitely Trump, definitely 20% were Biden, but 50% of the people that put on said they were undecided. So I do appreciate all of you being a part of this so that we can make a difference in this election. Thank you. Namaste. Happy Navratri.
Namaste. Happy Navratri.
Happy Navratri to everyone.